"Sir, please buy me." The voice floated from the shadow small, steady, and unbearably polite. It didn't belong in a place like this. Not amid the rusted folding chairs, sweat-stained walls, and stale breath of men who came here to claim things that ought never to be sold. Bo Maddox turned his head slowly, blinking as the high beams from the auctioneer's truck swung wide. The light caught the edge of a child's face. A black girl, no more than 7, stood barefoot on the dusty ground, her tiny hand clutching a wrinkled cloth bundle. Behind her, under the lean, slanted roof, someone's stereta shape huddled in the dark, coughing faintly. The girl stepped forward into the pale glare, revealing a face too calm for her years. Bo's heart stopped. It wasn't the girl that unraveled him. It was the woman behind her. Frail, folded over, head wrapped in a faded scarf but unmistakable. Annetta. It had been over 30 years. A different time, a different town, but the same corners of the South where a white boy loving a black girl was a scandal too great to survive. And so he hadn't. He left. She vanished. But here she was, like a ghost breathing in pain. He hadn't come here to remember. He'd come to buy land. Quiet, secluded, nothing more than trees and water, maybe build a cabin, maybe just breathe. A break from the boardrooms and brokerage calls. The South was supposed to be slow and stupid, full of men too busy dying to notice a billionaire among them. But the South remembered, and it clearly remembered how to punish. He looked around. No one else seemed surprised. The auctioneer was still yammering, something about property seizures and estate clearances, but nobody was bidding, not on these two. Bo stepped back. He couldn't be here. Not now. The girl Maya Williams stepped closer. "Please, sir, I need to help my mama. She's very sick, and the doctors won't see her without money. You can have me. Just give us enough to make her better." Bo's mouth opened, but no words came. He turned, walked away fast, his boots scraping gravel as he reached the edge of the lot. His Cara-rented black Lincoln was still warm from the drive down. He slid inside, locked the doors, and sat in silence. He wasn't that boy anymore. He wasn't 19, stuttering apologies and watching men in uniforms spit on her shoes. He wasn't powerless. He was Bo Maddox. He had built empires. He could crush industries with a memo. He didn't do ghosts. And yet, her eyes. God, those eyes. A knock startled him. He rolled the window down an inch. "You don't remember me, do you?" came a gravelly voice. It was Eli Thurman, who used to run the general store. Still wore overalls like it was 1965. Still had that bitter lemon scent of pipe smoke on his clothes. "You look just like your daddy," Eli said. "Except he would have done something." Bo stared at him. Eli's mouth curled into a knowing smirk. "You gonna leave again?" "Thought so." Then he walked away. Bo sat in silence, pulse pounding. His father had been a brutal man. Fists, drink, and silence. But he never ignored injustice, just beat it to death, sometimes literally. The man wasn't noble, but he was decisive. Bo wasn't like him, not in that way. Except, maybe, he was. 5 minutes later, Bo got out of the car. The auction had moved on. Some fence posts, a tractor. Bo cut through the crowd without speaking. Walked straight to the edge of the tarp where Annetta still lay, curled around herself, face damp with fever. Maya looked up. Hope flickered and fought in her eyes. "Are you gonna help us?" He took a breath that felt like swallowing fire. "I'll buy them," Bo said. The auctioneer blinked. "Sir? These two. The woman and child." That's Noda, we were told to just. They ain't property officially. More like attached liabilities." Bo pulled out his wallet. "Name your price." Someone in the crowd muttered. Another spat. The auctioneer hesitated, then scribbled on a slip of paper. Bo paid cash. He knelt beside Maya. "What's your name?" "Maya Williams." He looked at Annetta. "Can she walk?" Maya shook her head. Bo didn't ask again. He lifted Annetta into his arms. She was light, too light, bones and memory. The crowd parted, but not with grace. Some turned their backs. Others whispered. He didn't care. Back in the Lincoln, Maya sat quietly in the back seat, clutching her bundle. Bo drove in silence, heart beating like thunder. Halfway to the farm, he glanced in the rearview mirror. She was watching him. "Are you rich?" she asked. He chuckled softly. "I suppose I am." She nodded, thoughtful. Good. That means you won't let anybody hurt us again. He swallowed hard. Number he wouldn't. Not this time. The farmhouse hadn't changed much. It still squatted under the same lazy stretch of sky. Its roof bowed like an old man's spine. The front porch creaked under Bo Maddox's boots as he carried Annetta through the door. A puff of dust rose to meet them, and with it came 1,000 memories he thought he'd left behind decades ago. Maya followed quietly, her arms wrapped tight around the cloth bundle, eyes wide with caution and wonder. She stepped over the threshold, like a child stepping into someone else's dream. Bo laid Annetta gently on the couch covered in an old quilt his grandmother had made from denim scraps and church dresses. Her breathing was shallow, her skin clammy. Fever had claimed her, and she hadn't said a word since the auction. Maya, Bo said, crouching down to her level. I'm going to call a doctor, all right? She clutched her bundle tighter. We don't got money. I do. She studied him, not with gratitude, but suspicion. Men say things. Mama says words are cheap if they ain't got a soul behind them. Bo paused, taken aback. Your mama's right, he said softly. He stepped into the kitchen and pulled out his phone. The signal was weak, but enough. He called an old friend, Dr. Harris, a retired general practitioner still known for making house calls. Bo gave the address and didn't ask for permission. Back in the living room, Maya had unwrapped her bundle. Inside were 2 picture books, a pair of worn sneakers with the laces tied together, and a photo, a much younger Annetta holding a baby under the shade of a magnolia tree. Bo stared at it, heart buckling. She always looked sad when she held that photo, Maya said. Bo nodded slowly. That's you in the picture? I guess. I don't remember it. Mama said the man who took it was gonna help us once, but he never came back. His throat closed up. He had no words, only weight. The photo must have been taken after she left, or after she was taken. The memories bled in like ink in water. He remembered the way Annetta used to run fast and barefoot, laughing as she kicked up gravel behind her. He remembered sneaking her into the barn after dark, reading poetry by lantern light. And he remembered the day she disappeared. No note, no goodbye, just silence, thick and cruel. He hadn't searched hard, not really. His father had found out about them and made it clear one more step toward that girl, and he'd be cut off for good. Bo chose college, silence, safety, and regretted it every day since. Dr. Harris arrived just before sundown. Gray-bearded and hunched, he carried a leather bag older than Bo's Lincoln. He checked Annetta's pulse, examined her eyes, and scribbled on a pad. Severe dehydration, malnutrition, fevers climbing, he muttered. How long's she been like this? Bo glanced at Maya. 3 days, the girl said. We had nowhere to go. She kept saying help was coming. Dr. Harris gave Bo a long look, then pulled out an IV bag. I'll get her stabilized, but she needs real care, hospital level. Then she'll get it, Bo said firmly. Later, as Harris packed up, he pulled Bo aside on the porch. You sure about this, son? That woman? She's been through hell. You're not just buying her a bed. You're stepping into a fire. I started it, Bo said. It's time I stood in it. Harris studied him a beat longer, then nodded. Inside, Maya had found the kitchen radio. It still worked. Fuzzy gospel spilled into the room as she sat on a stool, kicking her heels and humming along. Bo poured her a glass of orange juice and watched her drink it in cautious sips. Does she know who I am? He asked. Maya wiped her mouth. She said your name sometimes, but like a secret. Did she ever tell you about me when she was younger? She told me she loved a boy once, but he wasn't brave enough. Bo flinched. He had nothing to defend himself with. The truth had no excuses. That boy, Maya added after a pause. Did she mean you? I think so. She nodded, then looked down at her lap. If you're him, don't run again. Bo knelt beside her, met her chaza. I won't. She studied him a moment longer, then leaned slightly forward and whispered, good, 'cause she waited. Even when I told her to stop, she waited. If this quiet moment moved you too, hit like to support the story and comment where you're watching from, because someone nearby might be watching with you right now. That night, Bo sat on the porch alone as stars slid quietly into view. Crickets sang like they had back then, and the air smelled like tobacco and pine. Inside, Annetta slept. Maya curled beside her, one small hand resting on her mother's chest. Bo didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in years, he wanted to find out. The next morning, Bo stood by the sink in the farmhouse kitchen, hands braced on either side of a chipped porcelain basin, staring through the window as dew glistened on tall grass. The sun had barely cleared the pines, but the weight on his shoulders made it feel like midday. The coffee he'd brewed sat untouched. He couldn't drink it not with the bitter taste already in his mouth. Annetta was still asleep, her breathing deeper now, steadier thanks to the IV that Dr. Harris had left behind. Maya sat beside her, wide awake but quiet, tracing invisible lines on her mother's forearm with a fingertip. She didn't speak. Bo didn't know what to say either. He had to leave. That much was clear. A flight back to New York left at 4. There was a quarterly investor meeting in 2 days, and board members were already squawking about the optics of his sudden disappearance. He had responsibilities, a firm, a future. Billionaires didn't take in strangers from dusty towns, especially ones they used to love, and Yeth couldn't make himself pack. Instead, he wandered the property. The barn doors sagged on rusted hinges. The vegetable patch had long since surrendered to weeds. The tree swing where Annetta once pushed him laughing, wild, barefoot now hung by one limp rope. He reached for it and stopped. The rope snapped before he touched it, as if the past itself refused to be clutched. His phone rang in his pocket. He glanced down. Ruth Weinstein, his chief operations officer. The call he'd been avoiding. He answered. "Where the hell are you, Bo?" "Georgia," he said. "You vanished. No press release, no forewarning. And there's a rumor going around that you bought 2 people at a county auction." Bo's jaw tightened. "It wasn't like that. Doesn't matter. The media doesn't care what it was. They care what it looks like. Stocks dipped 2 points overnight. Investors want answers. I'll handle it." "You're damn right you will. Today." Bo hung up. He found himself pacing the front porch, breathing hard. This was madness. He had no business staying here. The Bo Maddox of Wall Street wouldn't just blow off an emergency board meeting to play savior in a collapsing farmhouse. But that Bo Maddox had never seen Annetta near death. He sat on the porch swing and buried his face in his hands. A creak of the floorboards announced Maya's presence. She sat beside him, legs too short to touch the floor, and swung gently. Her curls were wild in the morning light, her eyes full of questions she was too polite to ask. Finally, she spoke. "You're gonna leave, aren't you?" Bo looked at her, startled. "What makes you say that? You keep walking around like your shoes don't want to stay. People who look like that always leave." He winced. "I don't want to," he said truthfully. "But you will." Bo sighed. "I have a company. People depend on me." Maya nodded solemnly. "Mama depended on you too, once." Her words hit him with a sharpness no headline ever could. He looked away, ashamed. "I was young," he murmured. "I was scared." She was quiet for a moment, then said, "You don't look scared now, just sad." He swallowed the lump in his throat. "Sadness comes when it's too late. Then don't let it be." She stood and walked back inside, leaving Bo on the porch with her words echoing louder than any phone call ever could. By midday, Bo found himself back in town. He'd told himself it was just to pick up supplies, medicine, food, something for Maya to wear other than the threadbare dress she had on. But deep down, he needed to see the town again, to confirm that this place still hated what he was. At the general store, the woman behind the counter gave him a once-over and didn't smile. "You're one of the Maddox boys," she said, bagging cold medicine. "Used to be," Bo replied. "They say you brought back a woman from the woods. Black woman, real sick." He didn't answer. "She used to work over at the Delaney farm, before all that trouble." "What trouble?" he asked quietly. The woman paused, then leaned forward. "Her husband died sudden. Some folks said she had a hand in it. She vanished right after." Bo stared at her. "She didn't vanish. She was thrown away." "Ugh." The woman looked startled. Bo paid in cash and left. Back at the farmhouse, Annetta stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, pupils dull but focused. "Maya," she croaked. "I'm here, Mama," Maya whispered, holding her hand. Bo entered quietly. Annetta looked at him. Confusion clouded her face, then recognition. Her lips trembled. "Bo," she said. He stepped closer. "Yeah, it's me." She blinked back tears. You came too late. I'm here now. She turned her face toward the ceiling, tears rolling sideways. I waited. God help me. I waited. Bo sat beside her and reached for her hand. She let him take it. I'm not going anywhere, he said. She didn't speak again, but her grip tightened just enough to tell him she believed it. And Bo finally believed it too. Annetta slept most of the afternoon, her body slowly climbing out of its fevered depths. Dr. Harris had said she needed rest more than anything, and Bo ensured she got it. Maya helped, never straying far from her mother's side, always watching her breathing like a little nurse with an invisible badge of courage. But Bo could feel the tension winding tighter inside the girl, a fear that sleep might steal her mother forever. That night, Bo lit the old fireplace in the den. The crackling of wood filled the silence. Maya sat curled in the armchair, hugging her knees, her eyes reflecting the flickering flames. Did you and Mama used to live here? She asked. Bo nodded. A long time ago, before either of us really knew what the world would do to us. Maya tilted her head. Why did she leave? Bo leaned back slowly. Because loving someone like me, in a town like this, was dangerous. People said things, did worse. She thought for a moment, then asked, Did you fight for her? The question sliced deep. Bo looked into the fire. Not hard enough. Silence stretched between them. The fire popped loudly, and outside, the cicadas buzzed like they were grinding time into dust. Do you still love her? Maya asked, voice small. Bo looked at her. She wasn't asking as a child, she was asking as the daughter of a woman who had loved and lost. A child who needed to know love could come back. I never stopped, he said. Maya nodded, satisfied with the answer. Then, with the practicality of someone who had survived too much, she said, Then you better not mess it up again. Bo smiled faintly. Deal. In the morning, Annetta was awake, propped up against pillows in the living room, wrapped in the same quilt Bo had laid her in. Her cheeks had regained a trace of color, and she was sipping broth slowly. When she saw Bo enter with a tray of toast and eggs, her eyes narrowed. You cook now? She asked, her voice scratchy. Not well, Bo said, but the eggs came out yellow, so I figure that's a good sign. She gave him a tired look, but the corner of her mouth twitched, almost a smile. He set the tray on her lap and sat nearby. I heard what you did, she said after a while. Bo folded his hands. You mean paying off a local crook to let you go? Annetta nodded. They were going to evict me. Said the land was seized for taxes. But we didn't owe that much. I tried to argue, but... Her voice trailed off. I should have come sooner, Bo said. I didn't ask you to. You shouldn't have had to. She looked at him long and quiet. Why now? He hesitated. Because when I saw Maya, I saw you. And when I saw you sick, half buried in that auction, I saw everything I threw away. I couldn't walk away again. Annetta closed her eyes, and for a moment, Bo thought she might cry. But instead, she just breathed deep. There's damage you don't fix with money, she said. You patch it with time. And time don't always show up when you want it to. I'm not going anywhere, Bo said. If you'll let me stay. She didn't answer, but she didn't say no. Later that day, a knock came at the door. Bo opened it to find Sheriff Delmore standing on the porch, hat in hand, eyes shadowed with suspicion. Maddox, the sheriff said. Mind if I come in? Bo stepped aside. Depends on why you're here. Oh, I heard rumors you were harboring someone with outstanding legal questions. Bo crossed his arms. Annetta? Delmore nodded. There was an incident some years back. Her husband died under unclear circumstances. There was never a full investigation. Town figured she'd skipped out of shame or guilt. She left to survive, Bo said coldly. And you all let the story write itself. Delmore stepped inside, hat still clenched. I'm not here to cause trouble, but people are watching. And a man in your position drawing this kind of attention. Bo cut him off. I'm not leaving, and neither are they. If you have questions, get a warrant. Otherwise, stay off my porch. Delmore studied him a long beat, then tipped his hat. You always did have your daddy's mouth. Bo's eyes didn't waver, and none of his poison. The sheriff left without another word. Bo turned to find Maya standing in the hallway, half hidden, listening. You okay? He asked. She nodded. I don't like that man. Me neither. She took a step closer. You think he's gonna come back? Maybe, Bo said. But if he does, he won't be the only one ready. That night, as the wind curled around the eaves and owls hooted from distant trees, Bo sat beside Annetta once more. She looked at him, her hand resting on his. You sure about this, Bo? She asked softly. This place, this past it don't forget easy. I'm not asking it to forget, he said. I'm asking it to let me fix what I broke. She smiled then. A real one. Small, tired, but full of something he hadn't seen in years. Hope. And for the first time, the past didn't feel like a chain around his neck. It felt like a bridge. 2 days later, the farmhouse began to breathe like a home again. The smell of soup replaced the scent of stale wood, and sunlight streamed through freshly scrubbed windows. Bo had scrubbed them himself, much to Maya's amusement, who pointed out he didn't even know which bottle was glass cleaner. He was learning, slowly, that some things were worth getting wrong the first time if you meant to make them right. Annetta grew stronger with each hour, managing to sit up on her own, take small bites of food, and even smile when Maya cracked one of her odd little jokes. But the tension lingered under their skin, like a storm they knew was coming but didn't want to name. Bo spent much of the morning in town, checking on the deed to the property. Though he had paid off the tax lien, the paperwork was slow and complicated intentionally so, he suspected. The clerk, a woman named Marlene who wore floral sweaters and had the eyes of someone used to ignoring injustice, gave him a file with a thin smile. Some records are missing, she said. Convenient, Bo replied. There's been disputes about that land for years. Folks say it wasn't rightly yours to buy. Huh. I bought what was being sold. Marlene leaned in. Just because something's for sale doesn't mean it was ever someone's to give away. Bo studied her face. You mean someone stole it? I mean it belonged to the Williams family since 1912, and it didn't just vanish. Bo's stomach turned. So what happened? Folks happened. Bad luck, harassment, fire, once. Then that husband of hers, Lloyd. He didn't leave her much but debt and a bad name. Bo clenched his jaw. I'm not letting that history bury them again. Marlene gave a tiny nod, the first flicker of approval in her expression. Then you better be ready. This town doesn't take kindly to rewriting its stories. Back at the farm, Maya met him at the door with her hands on her hips like a little sentinel. There's a lady waiting inside, says she knew Mama. Bo tensed. What's her name? Lana. He walked in to find a woman in her 50s sitting primly on the edge of the couch. Her red lipstick was too bright, her hair styled like someone trying to freeze time. When she turned and smiled, Bo recognized the eyes immediately sharp, calculating. Hello, Bo, she said. Still chasing ghosts? Lana DeWitt, he muttered. What are you doing here? I heard Annetta was back, and that you were playing savior. Annetta, who had just returned from the bedroom using a cane, leaned against the wall. Her eyes met Lana's with an expression carved from stone. Don't act surprised, Lana, Annetta said. Snakes always find the warm spots. Lana stood. I came to talk. That's all. Bo didn't believe that for a second. Lana continued, addressing Annetta now. You left a lot of mess behind, Nettie. Lloyd owed people. And you? Well, people haven't forgotten what they said you did. What they said was a lie, Annetta snapped. Lana tilted her head. Maybe, but lies leave stains. Bo stepped forward. This conversation's over. You're not welcome here. Lana smiled sweetly. I never needed an invitation, Bo. This land used to be mine too, you know. My father helped your father steal it back when it was still worth something. Maya had crept into the room, hiding behind a chair. Lana noticed. You must be the little girl, she said. Bo moved between them instantly. You should leave, now. Lana laughed lightly, brushing imaginary dust off her sleeve. Careful, Bo. This town remembers everything, including who you really are. Then she walked out, her heels clicking like gunshots on the porch. After the door slammed shut, silence fell. Annetta leaned heavily on her cane. She always hated me, she said softly. Jealousy does that, Bo replied, especially in a town built on control. That night, Bo sat on the back steps watching Maya play with a homemade slingshot and a collection of rocks. She aimed at a rusted tin can and missed, then scowled and tried again. She always like that? He asked Annetta, who had joined him on the steps. bundled in a shawl. Like what? Fierce. Annetta chuckled. Maya was born fighting. Doctor said she shouldn't have made it, but she did, loud and proud. Bo smiled. She scares me sometimes. Good. Means you're paying attention. He looked at her. Lana's visit. That's not the end of it, is it? Annetta shook her head. Number people like her, they don't come alone. They stir the pot, then wait to see who boils over. Bo stared out at the fields. Then let them boil. Annetta looked at him. You sure about this fight? I'm not fighting for me, he said. I'm fighting for you. For Maya. For what's right. She placed a hand over his. Then you'd better start digging in, 'cause the war's already at the gate. And in the darkness, with the cicadas loud again and the stars refusing to blink, Bo Maddox realized something he hadn't understood until now. He wasn't here to visit the past. He was here to change the future. By the end of the week, the wind began to shift, literally and otherwise. A heavy, wet heat settled over the county, pressing against the farmhouse like a warning. But inside, things were moving forward. Bo had hired a carpenter to fix the porch steps and patch the leaking roof. Maya insisted on painting the kitchen cabinets blue, like sky before storms. And Annetta was finally strong enough to sit in the garden without needing help. But peace never lingers long, where justice has been denied. It began with a letter, folded neatly in a white envelope and slid under the front door without a knock. Bo found it before sunrise, wedged between the welcome mat and a dead moth. No return address, just a single sentence typed in cold black ink. Land bought in blood don't stay bought. He read it twice before setting it down, jaw tightening. Annetta noticed his silence at breakfast. Something wrong? He handed her the note. She read it, blinked slowly, and folded it in half again. They've started. You think it's Lana? Annetta shook her head. Lana's too vain for silence. This is someone older, someone who thinks legacy is ownership. Bo sat down beside her, his coffee forgotten. You ever find out who really took your land back then? My grandfather left it in my mother's name, she said. But when Mama passed, the papers were never updated. We couldn't afford a lawyer. Lloyd, he didn't care about deeds, just his truck and his whiskey. Bo looked at her. And the town used that to take everything. They said we'd missed a filing deadline, said it reverted back to the county. Then magically, it was auctioned off 6 months later, to a cousin of the mayor. Bo cursed under his breath. And no one did anything? They said I should be grateful I wasn't charged for squatting. Later that day, Bo met with a local attorney, a wiry man named Reuben Glass, who had spent most of his career suing school districts and pesticide companies. Reuben listened quietly as Bo laid out the story. When Bo finished, Reuben rubbed his temples and sighed. This county has a long history of creative ownership transfers, he said. Especially with black families who didn't have wills. I don't want a history lesson, Bo said. I want a case. Reuben held up a hand. You might have one, but you need documentation, tax records, utility bills, anything that ties her family to that land over time. Otherwise, it's your word against a courthouse full of whitewashed files. Bo nodded. Then I'll dig. He spent the next 2 days searching the house. Closets, old trunks, floorboards beneath rugs. Maya helped, treating it like a treasure hunt, and Annetta watched from the couch with a look that flickered between hope and dread. On the third morning, Maya found it, a small tin box, hidden behind a loose brick in the fireplace. Inside were yellowed receipts, a voter registration card from 1964, and a folded paper deed marked Private Transfer Run Recorded. Bo held it like it was a gold bar. This might be enough. That night, someone slashed the tires on Bo's truck. They found it at dawn, leaning awkwardly in the gravel like a wounded animal. Bo stared at the damage while Maya stood nearby, hugging herself. Why do they hate us? She asked. Bo knelt beside her. Because people who've always had power think they lose something when they have to share. She didn't answer, just looked at the flat tires and then at the empty road beyond. Annetta stood in the doorway, one hand gripping the frame. You can still leave, she said, before it gets worse. Bo looked at her. I didn't stay through comfort just to run from threats. She gave him a look, half proud, half afraid. You better understand something, she said. They don't just threaten. When this town feels cornered, It bites. Bo glanced back at Maya. Then let him bite. I'm done bleeding quietly. Word spread faster than fire in dry grass. That Bo Maddox was not just restoring the old house but digging into the past. That he was stirring up lawsuits. That he intended to challenge the ownership of land most folks had already carved up in their heads. The whispers turned into glares. At the grocery store, the gas station, even church. On Sunday, as Bo walked Maya down the aisle to a pew, the room went still. Pastor Graham, an old friend of Bo's father, hesitated mid-sermon and adjusted his glasses. We're all welcome in the Lord's house, he said pointedly, but we must also respect the order he put into our lives. Bo stood, taking Maya's hand. You're right, Pastor. Which is why no house built on theft can truly be holy. The silence cracked. He walked out, not caring who followed. Back at home, Reuben called with news. The deed's not ironclad, he warned, but it's strong enough to file a claim. We might get a hearing. Bo leaned against the porch post. Then we fight. You sure you want this smoke? I didn't start the fire. I'm just making sure it's seen. That evening, Bo sat on the porch with Maya as the sun melted behind the trees. The breeze smelled like honeysuckle and rain. You scared? She asked. He looked at her. Yeah, she smiled. Good. Means you won't do anything stupid. Bo laughed. Says the girl who found the deed like she was in a spy movie. Maya leaned against him. I just wanted Mama to have her house back. She will, Bo whispered, one way or another. And as the stars began to stitch themselves into the sky, Bo knew that something fundamental had shifted not just in this town, but in himself. This wasn't just redemption anymore. It was war, and he was ready. Mornings in the farmhouse used to smell like fresh biscuits and promise. Now, each sunrise carried tension in its dust motes. Bo brewed coffee in silence, watching Maya emerge from the bedroom clutching a well-worn stuffed rabbit. She climbed into his lap before he'd even poured a cup. Did you sleep at all? He whispered. She traced the rabbit's ear. I heard tires popping, Mama crying, dogs howling. Bo closed his eyes. The damage to his truck had been a message not just to him, but to the entire household. A threat delivered under cover of darkness. He sipped his coffee, wishing it could burn away the fear. He set the mug aside, shielded Maya. I didn't hear it. You guys slept fine. She didn't look convinced. Annetta joined them in the kitchen, cane in hand. Her eyes were stronger now, but heavier older. She set her own mug down gently. How's the warrior girl? She asked. Maya shrugged. Brave when I gotta be. Annetta placed a hand on her head, soft as forgiveness. Good. Bo drew in breath and said, We're contacting media tomorrow, announcing our claim to the land. We're not hiding. Annetta looked at him. That's dangerous. He nodded. I know, but the town needs to see what we're doing is lawful, necessary. Annetta paused before she spoke again. Then make sure you show more than lawyers. Show the truth. Outside, the air trembled with heat. Bo looked at their faces and realized it wasn't just the air that trembled. It was the town breathing around them, watching, waiting, judging. They had become fixtures in its collective memory, and some looked past them with cold relief, convinced someone else would break the story soon. Others could barely tolerate their presence. But a few, Bo realized, watched with curiosity instead of contempt. Observers. Maybe even allies. He smiled at Maya and Annetta. In that moment, their unity felt like armor. The next day, Bo stood in the dusty conference room of the local newspaper office, flanked by Reuben Glass and the reporter, Charlotte Pierce. The typewriter in the corner tapped idly, and the smell of ink followed Charlotte around like a shadow. She clicked her pen. Mr. Maddox, so you're openly claiming the farm and seeking legal redress. Is that correct? Bo nodded. Yes. And why do you think this is more than personal? You're a billionaire. You could file your claim quietly without drawing attention. He met her gaze. Because this is not just my fight. It's hers. He gestured at Annetta, seated across from him, cane resting against her chair. She controlled her breath, steady but deliberate. Her family lost their home because of bad paperwork, racism, and fear. Reclaiming it is about dignity for her, for Maya, and for every family treated like theirs. Charlotte scribbled furiously. You believe this story resonates with the wider community? Bo paused. He looked around at the peeling paint and chipped trim. The newspaper office had seen better days. I hope so. We want to spark change, draw attention to this county's legacy, and maybe show others that silence doesn't heal, but giving voice can. Annetta reached for Maya's hand under the table. Maya squeezed it back. Charlotte smiled softly. Thank you. I'll start drafting your story. We'll try to get it in Sunday's edition. Back at the farmhouse, Annetta gently closed her eyes as the sun warmed her face. You did good, Maya whispered. Annetta opened her eyes, smiled. She did good. But the night brought voices again. This time, in the form of a rumble of trucks and revving engines circling the property. Bo stepped out, rifle in hand, not to fire, but to signal he was ready. Lights flashed off in the distance. Engines died. The threat remained but dissipated. Inside, Maya curled under a blanket. Heard them, she said quietly. Bo came to her side and knelt. They did. You're scared. Scared sometimes, he admitted, but not enough to back down. She leaned in. Mama says we stand together when it gets dark. That's what family does. He brushed her hair. She's right. As dusk settled, Bo, Annetta, and Maya sat on the worn couch. A soft tune played from the old radio gospel swelling in the quiet room. Bo closed his eyes. I wonder how many are listening. Annetta reached out to him. More than you know. Days later, Charlotte's article hit the stands. The headline, Legacy on the Line. Billionaire and Black Mother Fight for Justice in County Land Claim. Copies flew off the shelves at the store. Conversations sparked in the diner, under the neon buzz of the sign that never shut off. Some sighed with nostalgia, others flared with anger, but many nodded. At home, Bo held the newspaper, tracing the words. He looked up at the family he'd built in less than a week. He realized you can't unring a bell. They had sounded an alarm. Now, they'd see who answered. 2 days after the article was published, the letters started to come, not typed and threatening this time, but handwritten, sealed in stamped envelopes, many with return addresses scribbled in shaky cursive. Bo and Annetta sat at the kitchen table, a pile of them between them, the scent of old ink and paper rising like a memory. Maya stood on a stool, opening one envelope at a time with a plastic knife she'd declared her justice sword. From Alabama, she announced, handing the note to Annetta. Annetta read it aloud, voice soft but clear. Dear Mrs. Williams, I read about your story, and I want you to know, we lost our farm in 1967 the same way. I never got it back, but I hope you do. God bless you, always. Signed, Martha May Johnson. Bo looked up from the pile. Third one today that mentioned 1,967. Annetta nodded. It wasn't a good year for folks like us. Maya tore open another envelope. Louisiana. This one's got glitter. Bo smiled. That means it's either a church lady or someone trying to curse us. Annetta gave him a look. Could be both. By the afternoon, they had received 27 letters. Most of them were encouraging. A few hinted at shared pain, memories of homes lost, land stolen. And then there was the phone call. Reuben called with urgency in his voice. You stirred something, Bo. Got a call from a professor at Tulane University. She read the article and says there's a project she's leading mapping racial land loss in the South. She wants to help. Is this real help? Bo asked. Or academic curiosity? She sounded serious, said she has researchers, legal aids, and funding. Bo's breath caught. Get me a meeting. That night, the wind outside picked up, whistling through the trees like voices from the past. Bo stood on the porch, watching the shadows stretch long across the yard. Maya joined him, rabbit in hand. Do you think they'll let us keep it? She asked. He crouched beside her. What makes you think they let us have anything? She frowned. Then why fight? Bo took a deep breath. Because some things are worth fighting for, even if you don't know how the fight ends. She nodded. I think Mama's worth it. So do I, he said. Annetta watched them from the window, her fingers curled tightly around the edge of the sill. The reflection of her face overlapped with Maya's silhouette, two versions of strength, one forged in history, the other still being shaped. The next day, Professor Lorraine Keller arrived in a rust-colored SUV, hair in tight coils, wearing a cardigan that looked like it had been through 50 lectures and a dozen protests. She stepped out with a backpack and a sense of purpose. "You must be Mr. Maddox," she said, shaking Beau's hand. "And this?" She knelt slightly, smiling. "Must be Maya." Maya grinned. "I'm in charge of security." Lorraine laughed. "Good. I like to know who's really running things." Inside, Lorraine unpacked a laptop, 2 binders, and a scanner the size of a small microwave. She got to work immediately, scanning old documents, making copies of the unrecorded deed, tax slips, even utility bills from decades ago. "This is gold," she murmured. "Proof of occupation, payment, intent to keep." Annetta sat nearby, hands folded in her lap. "It's not just about paper." "I know," Lorraine said, "but sometimes paper is how we beat them at their own game." Beau leaned on the counter. "How long before we file?" Lorraine looked up. "We file next week, but we don't stop there. I want to document everything, your family's history, your loss, the timeline, and I want to submit it to the State Reparations Review Board." Annetta raised an eyebrow. "Reparations? Not money," Lorraine clarified. "Recognition, restitution. You'd be surprised how far a public record can go when the winds change." By evening, Lorraine had set up a digital archive and created a case timeline. She planned to return with a graduate student who specialized in historical land mapping. Beau walked her out to the car. "Why are you really doing this?" She looked at him. "Because when I was 9, my grandmother showed me the land our family used to own. All that was left was a tree, and I swore I'd make sure other folks had more than that to remember." He nodded slowly. "You're welcome anytime." She smiled. "Be careful, Mr. Maddox. Offer like that, I might just stay." As her car disappeared into the dusk, Beau returned inside to find Maya asleep on the couch, rabbit tucked under her chin. Annetta sat beside her, gently stroking her hair. "We're not alone anymore," Beau said. "No," Annetta replied. "But that doesn't mean they've stopped watching." "Oh." The next morning, the mailbox held no letters. Instead, there was a dead crow nailed to the post. Beau pulled it down without a word, burying it behind the barn. But when he came back inside, his hands were trembling. Annetta noticed. "They want you scared." "I'm not," he lied. She stared at him. "You should be, but don't let that stop you." And in that moment, Beau Maddox understood what generations of people like Annetta had endured fighting for a place in a world that had always treated them as guests in their own home. But they weren't guests anymore. They were reclaiming what was theirs, one truth at a time. The morning sun felt thin as Beau drove into town, heading to meet the new attorney Dr. Harris had mentioned. Reuben suggested he bring Annetta, but Beau insisted she stay home with Maya. This conflict wasn't hers alone, it belonged to everyone who'd walked this land before, and especially to the child whose future was tied to it. He pulled up before the small law office, its brick exterior aging like the county itself. Reuben Glass, wiry and sharp-eyed, greeted him in the frame of the doorway, his briefcase in hand and skepticism in his expression. "Glad you came," Reuben said quietly. "I am," Beau replied. "Let's talk." They entered the cramped space. Dust motes drifted in the beams of light, settling on shelves lined with legal texts and yellowed binders. Reuben gestured to the desk. "They've responded," Reuben began, opening his briefcase. "The Delaney heirs have retained counsel. They're contesting your claim to the Williams family land. They admit the paperwork was sloppily filed, but they assert adverse possession. They've used the land openly since the 80s. Beau frowned. "Used it how?" "Timber, livestock. One of Delaney's cousins built a cabin and paid county taxes until he died 15 years ago. That doesn't erase the original ownership," Beau said. "Not in their world," Reuben replied. "Their lawyer, Whitaker, is slick. He's got money. They want a settlement. Orand, this is likely. They push for a trial. They're not backing down." Beau exhaled. "Then we fight." Reuben nodded. "Wrong approach. We need a counteroffer. Public pressure. Papers aren't enough. We need community support." Beau paused. "Like the two-lane mapping project?" "Exactly," Reuben said. "History plus law. It creates a narrative no judge can tastefully ignore." Beau rubbed his chin. "Set it up." Reuben looked away. "There's another matter." Beau waited. "Whitaker plans to devalue the claim. He's going to accuse Annetta of mental instability. Medical records. She's vulnerable." Beau's blood ran cold. She's stronger than any record. Reuben sighed. Don't underestimate them. That afternoon, Beau returned home, anxiety heavy in his chest. He found Annetta sitting in the garden, tending the small flower bed Maya had insisted on planting earlier snapdragons and marigolds, vivid and determined among the broken clay pots. You didn't come, she said without looking up. I had to, he said gently. They're bringing in a big lawyer. Annetta placed her trowel on the ground and turned. So what now? We go on a fence. We finish filing. We meet with the mapping team next week, and we prepare for whatever they'll throw at us. Her eyes glistened. They'll go for me. I know. She rose slowly. Then I'll stand. Beau pulled her into his arms. You won't do it alone. That evening, Maya knocked on his office door. He looked up from the papers scattered across the table, tax receipts, maps, email printouts. She held out a small notebook. I wrote letters back, she said shyly. Thank you, ladies from Alabama and Louisiana. Beau took the notebook. He opened it to find clumsy sentences written in pencil. Dear Miss Johnson, thank you for telling me your story. I hope you get your home, too. We fighting, too. Tears burned his eyes. He looked at her, speechless with pride. She looked back, chin lifted. Good or stupid? He swallowed. Brilliant. She smiled wide, then said softly, I fight now, like Mama. He nodded, overwhelmed. The next morning, the mapping team arrived. 3 graduate students in crisp shirts and backpacks full of equipment. They walked the land with Beau and Reuben, marking boundaries, taking GPS points, photographing old fence lines and stone markers. Each click and beep built a visual record of the Williams claim and ecosystem of memory. The students asked questions. They measured the oak tree where Annetta and Maya had planted saplings. They documented where the house once stood before the fire. They listened to Annetta's voice as she recounted her childhood, her laughter, her fears, her first kiss under a magnolia. This was history in motion. And every word tethered to a story bigger than theirs. When the sun reached high noon, the students packed up. The lead professor, Lorraine Keller, shook hands all around. This is powerful, she said. Our report will go to the state board within days, and the mapping will be published online, where it can't be ignored. Beau watched Lorraine walk away, his heart pounding like a bell. What they'd done wasn't just legal, it was seismic. Later that day, he found Annetta alone in the house, sitting at the window where the light hit her profile like a halo. He knelt beside her chair. They're coming after your mind, he said softly. They want to question you, plant doubt. She glanced up. Let them. I know who I am. You know what they'll say? That you've been unstable, that you weren't cared for, that Maya was in danger. Annetta closed her eyes for a moment. She opened them, steely. Then let them say it. I stood up. I fought. And if my head is on trial, I'll answer. Beau swallowed. I love you. I know, she whispered. Don't forget, we're more than their version. He held her hand tight. That night, as the children slept, Maya snoring softly on the couch, Rabbit tucked beside her. Beau sat at the desk, drafting a press release. He began with gratitude. To the community, the mapping team, the families who shared their pain. Then he laid out the fight. A struggle for dignity. Roots, just a note just for Annetta, but for every family silenced by history. He ended with a call. If you believe in justice, stand with us. As he printed copious, he heard Annetta's soft voice behind him. You wrote that? Every word. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Then you know what we're doing is right. He kissed the top of her head. Every day I remember why I'm here. And in that moment, the farmhouse felt full of purpose, of danger, and of a quiet courage that no storm could erase. A week after Lorraine's mapping team left, the farmhouse was quiet in the afternoon sun, too quiet, if Beau was honest. He sat at the kitchen table, the legal documents spread before him like enemy terrain, and listened as Maya played in the backyard with Eliza, her stuffed rabbit trailing behind. Annetta lay on the couch, reading but quiet. Beau's phone buzzed. An email from a university archive in Atlanta responding to Lorraine's request. We located original family correspondence letters dated 1958 to 1965, referencing Miss Williams' grandparents. Visits to this address? He exhaled sharply. He carried the laptop to Annetta, who set aside her book and peered over his shoulder. Together they clicked the PDF. Delicate handwriting, fading ink, but it was her grandmother's signature, precise, flowing, unmistakable. "I remember those visits," Annetta whispered. "Summers with fresh peaches and church picnics." Beau's throat tightened. This ties your family to the land for decades before the dispute." She nodded, tears glinting. "They tried to erase us." Beau swallowed pride and anger. "Then we let them." Within hours, Reuben had integrated the archive findings into their legal brief. Lorraine was preparing a visual timeline, marrying the letters with land deeds and the older tin box documents. Meanwhile, Maya read through the letters with razor-sharp focus. One evening, while Beau cooked dinner, a clumsy attempt at spaghetti with garlic bread, a nod to Maya and Annetta's favorite, Maya leaned over and asked, "Papa Beau, did Grandma know who stole the land?" He stirred sauce and replied, "She suspected, but paperwork is a cunning thing. It doesn't always tell the truth." Maya stirred her buttered noodles. "Maybe we should read those letters at the hearing." Beau paused, spatula midair. "You think that would help?" She nodded decisively. "Show the judge they weren't just words. They're our family's voice." Later, Annetta and Beau discussed it quietly in the porch's rocking chairs. Fireflies danced in the dusk. "Maya's idea," Beau began. Annetta smiled faintly. "That girl's got fire in her soul. What if the judge feels it's too emotional?" She reached for his hand. "Judges are humans. They ignore stories at their own peril." The next morning brought a knock at the door. Lorraine stood with a slim folder and hopeful eyes. "I reviewed the archiving letters," she said, "and I've plotted a presentation that interpolates them onto the map. This isn't just paperwork, it's lived experience." Annetta stood and embraced her. "Thank you." Lorraine nodded and gently said, "Prepare yourself. His legal counsel Whitaker will question you directly at the hearing." Annetta's face hardened. "Then I'll be ready." By Thursday, the whole town buzzed with anticipation. At the lawyer's office, Beau, Reuben, Lorraine, Annetta, and Maya sat before an array of maps, letters, and screenshots of property records. Lorraine paced, rehearsing her opening, while Beau practiced his brief remarks. Reuben cleared his throat. "Maya, you might sit with Mom. If they question you, make sure you're calm." Maya nodded solemnly. "I'm not scared." Beau squeezed her knee. "You've got more courage than anyone." That afternoon, they arrived at the county courthouse, a hulking brick building with faded plaques, and a front portico supported by fluted column symbols of tradition and authority. Inside, the courtroom smelled of old wood, mildew, and silent tension. Whitaker, tall and impeccably dressed, approached with a glacial smile and confident nod. Opposite him, Reuben stood relaxed but alert. Judge McAllister entered and took his seat. He was a man in his 70s, glasses perched on his nose, a folded history of the county etched into his face. The hearing began. Reuben spoke, first establishing the chronological record, from tax payments and utility bills to the unrecorded deed and grandmother's letters. Each piece of evidence folded into the next, building a mosaic of legitimacy. Whitaker countered aggressively, highlighting the timbering by Delaney Cousin, the cabin, the public taxes paid, and adverse possession statutes. He implied Annetta hadn't contested usage for years. He leaned toward Annetta. "Mrs. Williams," he said, voice smooth. "Can you explain why you didn't challenge the title transfer when your husband died and the land was seized?" She met his gaze steadily. "Because I couldn't," she said. "Because I trusted our system. Because they told me ownership and history didn't matter, and I believed them." A silence fell. Maya, wide-eyed, pressed her mother's hand. Whitaker shifted tactics. He produced medical records, questioning Annetta's capacity, her stability. He asked about her health, her mental state, suggesting she hadn't been a fit steward. Annetta responded, "My mind and heart were exactly where they needed to be to protect my child and my legacy." She paused. "If being told you're weak makes you believe it, you're not honoring the land. You're honoring their lies." Beau's chest pounded. Lorraine later told him Maya's little fist clenched the back of his chair. Reuben closed with the letters. He asked the court to allow the reading of two extracts, one from 1958 and another from 1964, where Annetta's grandmother named the property, cited acreage, referred to the home. He invited Maya to stand and read them. The courtroom held its breath as Maya's small voice echoed, "Our home here, the place we belong." By the time she finished, several heads bowed. Judge McAllister read every document again, stared at the maps, and looked at Annetta, Bo, and Maya seated together. After what felt like an eternity, he set his gavel down. "This matter is more than legal. It is fundamental. These letters, this record, and the voices of those harmed, they speak of history's burden and justice's promise." He paused. "I rule in favor of Mrs. Williams and her rightful claim. The land is to be returned to her and Miss Williams, to hold in family trust." The gavel struck, echoing through the room. Bo closed his eyes. Annetta leaned into him, tears shining. Maya danced in the pew, holding her rabbit high. Whitaker, expression unreadable, packed his briefcase slowly, then nodded curtly. Outside, Lorraine hugged everyone. On the courthouse steps, Bo raised a fist. Annetta and Maya held hands, standing tall. A few townsfolk watched from the sidewalk, some eyes moist, others hardened. But this time, no one looked away. They had won, by words, by truth, by family. And as they walked to their car, the sun broke through the clouds. They had reclaimed not just land but identity, dignity, and justice. And their story was far from over. The courthouse doors swung open like the final gate to a battlefield victory. Sunlight spilled onto the steps as Bo, Annetta, and Maya emerged, embraced by Lorraine and Reuben. The world felt lighter. The air tasted sweeter. Whispered congratulations rippled through the gathering crowd as cameras clicked and reporters scribbled notes. Annetta held Maya's hand, her voice soft and full of awe. "We did it, baby." Maya smiled wide, her curls bouncing. "Mama, we did it." Bo placed a gentle hand on Annetta's shoulder. "You did it." As reporters circled, flashbulbs snapping, Maya tucked behind her mother. Bo answered questions with quiet confidence. "We're grateful," he said. "But this is just the start." They left the courthouse on their own terms, no need for celebratory fanfare, just a shared sense of hard-won justice. Reuben tipped his hat. Lorraine hugged them both, her eyes shining with solidarity. Once back home, the farmhouse felt different, lighter, more like theirs. Annetta walked across the yard slowly, testing the earth underfoot. She stopped by the old oak tree. Her palm brushed its bark, feeling the ridges, the history it held. Bo joined her quietly. "You want a picnic under it?" She smiled thoughtfully. "Yes." Maya ran over, dragging a wool blanket and an old wicker basket. The three of them sat beneath the oak, unwrapping sandwiches, sliced apples, and cold lemonade. It was simple and sweet, just a mother, father, and daughter reclaiming hours of normalcy the town had stolen away. After a while, Bo noticed a small group approaching neighbors who had remained silent until now. A middle-aged couple from down the road hesitated before greeting them. The husband offered his hand to Bo. "Congratulations." Annetta stood, wiping her hands on her dress. "Thank you." The wife turned to Maya. "You're brave, sweetheart." Maya glowed. "Thanks." Another man, older, with gentle eyes, stepped forward. "My father worked this land before your grandmother. I'm sorry for how things went." Annetta's eyes filled again. She touched his arm. "Thank you for saying that. It wasn't perfection, but acknowledgement." The quiet unfreezing of old wounds. Bo watched as the group joined them on the blanket, sharing stories and sweet tea. The past had not disappeared, but it was finally being spoken aloud. That evening, as the sun dipped low, Bo walked Annetta into the house. Maya followed, her rabbit tucked under one arm. Inside, Bo paused in the kitchen doorway. Annetta looked up at him, tired but content. He kissed her forehead. "We have a court hearing for reparations next month," she said gently. He nodded. "We'll prepare." He paused, gaze falling to the floor. "Will this be enough?" She took his hand. "We have what matters. Our name, our history, our land." He exhaled, relief and determination mingling in his chest. "Then nothing can take us under." Maya skipped in, placing her rabbit on the kitchen counter. "Can we tell the story tomorrow at church?" Annetta exchanged a look with Bo. "Yes, we can." The three of them hugged. With the oak tree's shade behind their shoulders, They were more than a family, they were a promise of redemption. In the hush of night, Bo lay awake, listening to the silence inside the house. The wind rustled outside, but this time it felt like a lullaby, not a warning. He closed his eyes, ready for whatever came next. Because they'd survived, the Shadow's Hand stepped into the light. Bo woke to the smell of smoke. Thin tendrils curled under the window's edge. He jumped out of bed and raced downstairs. Flames o'er last night's embers licked the edge of the fireplace grate, threatening to leap. He lunged forward, grabbing the metal poker, pushing burning coals back into the hearth. Annetta appeared behind him, eyes wide. "Maya," she whispered. They both turned to see a charred photograph frame on the mantel, the glass shattered, the edges of a family photo curling black. The fire hadn't spread, but it was close. Too close. Bo sprang forward. "Maya?" he called. In the living room, a small pile of matches, their covers torn, lay scattered. The chandelier above still glowed dimly, illuminating the damage. Bo's skin felt cold. He found Maya quietly kneeling by the fireplace, rabbit in hand, her face solemn. "Was it an accident?" he asked softly. She looked up, tears brimming. "I didn't," she began. Annetta knelt beside her. "Darling, did you drop the match?" Maya shook her head. "I found them in the drawer." She held up Unit's head burnt to black, but intact. "I don't know where they came from." Bo took the match gently. They were brand new, the kind sold in fancy tins at hardware stores. His heart pounded. This wasn't childish curiosity. It was a message. "Get dressed," Bo said to Maya. "We're going to breakfast." They left the farmhouse in a nervous hush. At the diner, the cotton blossom, the smell of eggs and coffee offered momentary comfort. Bo's shoulders shook as he sipped his black coffee. Annetta called the sheriff's office, requesting an investigation. Bo placed another order. He refused to let panic steer the day. Maya sat quietly, thumb pressed against her rabbit's ear. When the waitress brought pancakes, she looked up and asked quietly, "Papa Bo, will they come back tonight?" He swallowed. "Number, because tonight, we're not alone." She nodded, but the fear lingered behind her eyes. It revolved in her chest like a storm. Back home, Bo secured the house windows locked fiercely. Fireplace grate closed, matches removed. He installed motion sensor lights borrowed from the diner. He felt like a man preparing for war, defensive, vigilant, protective. Annetta stayed close, clutching a Bible as if to ward off ghosts. Maya followed them continuously, her rabbit trailing at every step. On the porch, Bo laid out a plan. "We increase community visibility," he said. "We host an open house coffee and biscuits. Invite anyone who supports us. Lights on, voices loud. We don't hide." Annetta nodded. "Let them see we're not afraid." Maya smiled, her fear receding. "I can help," she said. "I'll hand out the juice boxes." Bo ruffled her curls. "Thank you, soldier." By afternoon, the cotton blossom had an announcement posted on its chalkboard. Saturday, 10 a.m., farmhouse open house, all welcome. A few locals whispered about it. Some applauded. Others grumbled. But news traveled. The evening fell with tension. Bo checked the porch lights twice. Annetta placed a plate of cookies outside. Maya practiced greeting. "Hi, I'm Maya. Welcome." The front door remained unlocked but not stained by fear. Night came with the wind stirring faint, but it didn't bring shadows at the door. Instead, crickets sang loud, and the house felt strangely peaceful. Bo fell asleep on the couch, an open law book across his lap. Annetta covered him with a blanket. She glanced around once, seeing safety in the soft glow of lights, then closed her eyes. Maya slept in her usual spot, rabbit tucked close. Morning. They awoke early. Bo greeted them with hot drinks and soft smiles. "Let's do this," he said. The open house began slowly. First neighbor arrived a young mother with a toddler, bearing a bouquet of daisies and sympathy. Then a local pastor, followed by the general store owner, Marlene, who carried a plate of cinnamon rolls. Word spread. The old Williams place had been reclaimed. People came to support, they said. Inside, Bo guided small groups through the house, explaining the maps, showing Maya's letters and the archive photos. Annetta stood by the photo frames, tears held back, greeting everyone with dignity. Maya carried juice boxes, bravely offering them around. A group of 3 entered older men, silent until one spoke. We lost land too. Took my granddad's farm back in '54. Never got it back. Bo nodded, emotion in his throat. We're fighting together. The man placed his hand on Bo's arm. We'll walk with you. By noon, the yard was full. Laughter floated. Cameras were discreet. Bo watched Anetta and Maya greet guests, words of kindness flowing naturally. It was a moment of unity. Toward afternoon, Ruben and Lorraine arrived with coffee and updates, more letters, a feature in a regional magazine and news that officials were monitoring the case closely now. The sense of momentum built, like a fire that spreads warmth rather than threat. At day's end, as the sun warmed the porch boards, Bo looked at his family surrounded by neighbors, talking, sharing food, solidarity pouring into the house. His chest ached with gratitude. Anetta leaned into him. They came. They did, he said, and they stayed. Maya hopped onto Bo's lap, rabbit resting on her knee. We did good? You did amazing, he whispered. She pressed her cheek to his. Then I'm staying too. Bo kissed her hair. All of us. And for the first time since the matches, the farmhouse felt truly safe, not because threats vanished, but because the light they shone chased them away. They stood together on the porch, the day's echoes of goodwill humming around them. And Bo knew this was the fire they needed within to warm wounds and ignite change. A week later, the courtroom brimmed with voices, some hushed, some bold. Long pews filled as anticipation rippled through the audience. Bo, Anetta, and Maya sat at the front table beside Ruben and Lorraine. Whitaker took his seat across the aisle, flanked by the Delaney heirs in dark suits. Judge McAllister entered, and the room fell into a hush deep enough to echo. Ruben began their presentation. He revisited prior hearings, emphasizing the documented lineage and deed, grandparents' letters, mapping evidence, and the significance of internal testimony. He spoke with confidence, eyes resting briefly on Anetta. We are not here to dispute wealth, but to restore justice. Whitaker rose next. He paced toward the gallery, voice smooth and controlled. He attacked the validity of the mapping data, claimed adverse possession, and questioned Anetta's character. Mrs. Williams allowed this stone house to fall to ruin, he began. She didn't contest taxes paid by another. How can we trust her claims today? Anetta stood, cane in hand, dignity radiating. I was told I was too poor to own it, too sick to care, too black to matter, and I believed it. I had no choice. Her voice wavered, then steeled. But that house is more than stones. It's memory. Every brick holds stories my family told as they worked through sun and rain. And yes, I allowed it to fall because I was beaten by lies, not because I didn't love it. A hush fell. Whitaker tried to object, but Judge McAllister signaled for him to sit. Then Maya stood. The courtroom drew in a breath. She held her rabbit, voice steady. Your Honor, this is my family's home, not just because of papers, but because my grandma dreamed it when she was young. When other people said she was nothing, she kept believing it was ours. I believed too. Tears glistened on Anetta's cheeks. Bo swallowed, his throat thick. Ruben nodded approvingly. Next, Lorraine took the stand, explaining the mapping, the archive letters, the patterns of land transfers in the South. She emphasized systemic erasure and the importance of restorative justice. Her testimony blended facts with meaning. This isn't a mere dispute over land, she said. It's a chance for the court to acknowledge history and affirm that memory still matters. Whitaker rose again, but his arguments felt smaller now. His words lacked conviction. He questioned the timeline, but the archival documents and Maya's testimony carried weight. Judge McAllister closed his eyes, reading through the final documents. Time slowed. Then he looked up, calm and resolute. I've heard history. I've felt legacy. And I've seen truth. This court will not participate in that irrational today. The claim by Mrs. Williams stands. The home and property are to be returned to her and reserved for her family's future. Bo exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he'd held. Anetta leaned into him, tears flowing. Maya hugged her rabbit and then hugged Bo. Whitaker collected his papers, face expressionless. Outside the courtroom, Lorraine hugged them. Ruben nodded solemnly. Reporters scribbled as news spread. On the courthouse steps, Bo raised a fist in silent refusal to let history win. Anetta and Maya joined hands, standing beneath the threshold of justice fulfilled. Neighbors, journalists, and curious onlookers watched. Some cried, some nodded, but many simply absorbed the moment. Annetta spoke quietly into Beau's ear. We opened shadows and brought in the light. Maya smiled at her grandmother. We did it together. Beau held them both close. Forever and always. And as the sun warmed their faces, the shadows of the court were behind them. A new chapter had begun. The morning light found Beau, Annetta, and Maya at the farmhouse kitchen table, the newspaper open with headlines celebrating their win. The headline read, "Justice Restored. Williams family reclaims home." They drank sweet tea in silence, letting the victory sink in before speaking. Annetta broke the quiet. "They called me Mrs. Williams in court today," she said softly. "Not that woman. Not someone beneath notice." Beau reached for her hand. "You earned it." Maya twirled her rabbit in her lap. "I told them. Judge saw me. He heard me." Beau smiled at her pride. "You changed things." The farmhouse felt different now, full of sound and possibility. Light streamed through windows unburdened by shadows. The walls themselves seemed to breathe relief. Later that afternoon, Beau stood at the edge of the driveway, greeting guests arriving for the celebration meal. He wore a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up, ready to do more than Host wanted to serve. Annetta stood beside him, cane in hand, wearing a pastel dress and quiet joy in her smile. Maya ran back and forth, carrying a basket of cornbread muffins. Neighbors came first: Marlene from the store, the pastor from church, the old men who had approached under the oak tree. They brought salads and pies, casseroles, and dishes passed down through generations. Many spoke of history, loss, and the kindness of truth. Food smells wove together: sweet potato pie, greens simmered with ham hocks, cornbread crisp at the edges. Beau carved a ham, pouring gravy over warm slices. He filled plates, handed them out. It felt right: food and community binding unfamiliar hands in acceptance. Annetta sat at the head of the table, flanked by Beau and Maya. Somewhere between the green beans and the laughter, someone proposed a toast. "Here's to home," the pastor said, raising his glass, "and to the family who never let it go." Glasses clinked. Annetta found Beau's gaze. He nodded, tears glimmering in both their eyes. Toward evening, as the light softened, a group gathered under the oak tree. Children played tag. Older folks shared memories of the farm's early days, and teens sat in circles listening. Maya perched on Beau's knee, quietly handing out cupcakes. Annetta joined them, her presence gentle but strong. She spoke softly to Beau and pointed, then approached a small cluster of women, greeting them each by name. They responded with warmth, a wound being healed one apology at a time. Beau moved to stand beside the pastor. They watched as Annetta knelt beside a woman with silver hair, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. Pastor Graham spoke softly into Beau's ear. "This is big. For them, for the county, for history." Beau nodded. "It's more than victory. It's forgiveness." The pastor laid a hand on his shoulder. "Rooted in truth." As night fell, lanterns were lit. The farmhouse glowed golden. Music rose softly: gospel hymns and old hymnal tunes. Maya led a small group in singing, her untrained voice full of pride. Beau and Annetta danced slowly on the porch. Maya watched, smiling proudly. The land all around them felt warm, healed, not just returned, but reborn. Later, beneath the oak tree, Beau lit a small fire in a fire pit. He handed marshmallows to Maya, who popped them into her mouth with delight. Annetta sat beside her, humming the old Sunday song. Beau looked around at the gathering families talking, music playing, forgiveness settling like dew. He realized that victory wasn't a moment in court. It was right here, in shared food, joined voices, healing hearts. He leaned toward Annetta. "You know, this next chapter will be quieter." She looked at him. "Maybe, but quieter doesn't mean less important." He smiled. "Come morning, we plan the orchard." "Orchard?" she asked, amused. "Yes, fruit trees, chickens, a vegetable patch." Her eyes glistened. "The children we plant now will taste it." Maya interrupted, sticky marshmallow fingers tapping his arm. "Papa Beau, can we plant pumpkins?" He laughed. "Of course." The fire crackled. Lanterns glowed. The farmhouse, once empty and haunted, was alive and hopeful. As dawn approached, families lingered, hugging and saying goodnight. Bo helped bring folding chairs inside. Annetta tucked Maya into bed, placing a hand on her forehead. The house quieted, the fire's embers glowing dimly through the window. Bo sat on the porch steps. Annetta joined him, slipping her arm through his. "You did something amazing," he whispered. "Together," she said. He gazed at her, at the land, at the soft lights inside. "This farm, this family, it's ours." She rested her head on his shoulder. "And always will be." Under the watch of oak and stars, they sat together. Victory was theirs, but beyond that, a life reclaimed and a future rooted in truth, forgiveness, and the enduring power of love. 2 mornings later, the farmhouse kitchen was bursting with sunlight and the scent of brewing coffee. Bo moved from window to stove, preparing biscuits and sausage gravy. Annetta hummed softly as she cut vegetables for the day's gathering. Maya skipped around with her rabbit, placing mason jars of wildflowers on the table. Today wasn't a celebration, it was a renewal. They had reclaimed their land. Now, they would plant roots and reconnect with the county. Around noon, cars began rolling onto the driveway. A small invitation had gone out, a potluck for unity and harvest planning, open to everyone interested. About 20 neighbors arrived, some familiar, some new faces peering with curiosity. There were murmurs of appreciation, genuine this time. A table was set under the oak tree, long wood planks on sawhorses, covered with floral cloths. Dishes ranged from collard greens to potato salad, peach cobbler, and pimento cheese sandwiches. Bo greeted every guest by name, offering warm hospitality. Annetta moved with quiet grace, plates in hand, laughter in her eyes. Maya ran ahead, shouting, "Food this way," and leading the youngest children through the yard. Pastor Graham took his place at the head table. "Today," he began, "we come together not just as neighbors, but as partners. What was lost is promised again. And this land, this home, is ours to cultivate together." A round of nods and soft applause followed. An older man with a weathered face stood and raised a toast, to second chances, and to families who dare to stand up. They ate under the dappled shade, voices weaving conversations about shared hardships, childhood memories, hope for new collaboration. Some offered to tend the garden, others volunteered ideas for community events, farm markets, seasonal festivals, vegetable swaps. Maya, seated on a hay bale, listened with pride. When someone asked about the farm's future, she stood and said, "I want to teach everyone to plant pumpkins." "Let her lead you," Bo whispered, beaming beside her. After lunch, Bo took a moment to walk through the fields with Annetta and Pastor. They spoke softly about future events, church gatherings, opportunities to mend the past. At the edge of the field, Bo paused. He dug his hand into the soil. It was warm, damp, and rich with the promise of new life. Annetta laid her hand on his. "We'll grow more than vegetables here." He nodded. "We'll grow community, trust." On his way back, Bo found Reuben and Lorraine by the farmhouse's porch, deep in conversation about legal next steps, reparations filing, educational outreach, archiving the family story for public record. Lorraine mentioned a documentary opportunity. Reuben outlined property tax revisions. Bo squeezed Lorraine's shoulder. "This farm is more than home," he said. "It may become a turning point." Inside, Annetta had gathered everyone near the hearth, lighting a small candle. "We begin today with seeds," she said. "Seeds we feed with hope, kindness, and understanding. Let this table remind us that growth always takes community." They released the candle's flame into a hurricane glass, symbolizing shared responsibility and light. Evening brought quiet clarity. Maya curled up by the lit fireplace, listening to Annetta and Bo whisper dreams of orchards, bees, and harvest festivals. Smoke drifted through the open window. Crickets started their lullaby. Bo kissed Annetta's forehead. "Thank you for believing I could do this with you." She smiled, eyes gleaming. "Thank you for staying." He looked out into the night beyond the oak branches. "We built more than a family," he said. "We built a legacy." She rested her head against his shoulder. "And now we decide how it grows." Maya drifted to sleep with her rabbit beside her, dreaming of pumpkin vines and community tables. Bo and Annetta stayed awake a while longer, envisioning the life unfolding, rooted, hopeful, and shared. In that moment, the farmhouse wasn't just theirs. It belonged to the past, the present, and the future. It was, in every breath of wind and spark of light, a place at the table for everyone who chose to believe in justice rediscovered and lives restored. The late afternoon sun slanted golden through the farmhouse windows, painting the kitchen with a warmth that felt like a promise. Bo sipped his tea slowly, watching Maya and Annetta at the table. Pages of a homegrown gardening magazine splayed before them. Maya was excitedly picking locations for Our Pumpkin Patch, while Annetta nodded approvingly, pointing to diagrams and making notes. Bo set his cup down. "Maya, can you come here for a moment?" Maya looked up, her eyes bright and curious. She stepped over, still clutching her rabbit, and perched on his knee. Bo took a breath and looked into her eyes. "This week, you did something that gave me a lot of pride. You stood in court, told your truth, and helped save our home." He paused, voice softening. "You showed courage beyond your years." She blushed and looked at her feet. Bo smiled gently. Then, kneeling so he was eye level with her, he asked the question he'd rehearsed countless times but never quite spoken, not until now. "Maya Williams, will you call me Daddy?" Maya's eyes widened. She looked at Annetta, who sat quietly, heart pounding. Then she turned back to Bo. Slowly, with solemn care, she placed a tiny hand on his cheek and looked him in the eye. "You already are, Daddy Bo." Time froze for a heartbeat. Bo's throat tightened, and he squeezed her gently. Tears glimmered behind his eyes. Annetta stood behind them, hand to her heart, a smile breaking through her tears. "Yes," she said, voice choked. "He is." Maya beamed, hugging Bo's neck. He gathered them both into a warm embrace. For a moment, they stood locked together, broken threads of the past, now woven into a new tapestry of family. They settled at the table. Annetta gently held Maya's hand as Bo addressed her. "From now on, we make decisions together. Pumpkin patches, garden plans, bedtime stories, Daddy included." Maya nodded vigorously. "I like that." Later, outside beneath the oak, Bo built a small wooden sign. He painted it carefully. "Williams Family Farm, Daddy, Mama, and Maya." Maya helped by holding the paintbrush and choosing the letters. When it was finished, they hammered it into the ground together, planting it firmly in the earth. As dusk gently fell, neighbors passing by slowed to smile. The sign radiated something they'd seen before, but better now: belonging. The farm belonged to this family, and they belonged to it. That night, in bed, Bo lay awake while Annetta slept beside him, breathing softly. Maya was curled in her rabbit-laden nest in the next room. Bo slipped quietly from their room and stepped onto the porch. The stars were bright, the air warm. He traced the outline of the sign from a distance, feeling pride settle in his bones. Annetta joined him, wrapping her arms around him. "I heard her," she whispered. "She called you Daddy." He kissed her head. "I feel like the luckiest man." She smiled. "She's lucky too." They stood together, listening to the night insects hum, their hearts full. Dawn arrived with hope. The farmhouse stirred. Maya raced out first, holding her rabbit high. "Daddy, come see." She led Bo and Annetta to the yard. Overnight, volunteers from the community had planted flower seeds around the sign's base: wildflowers, daisies, purple coneflowers, swaying gently in the breeze. Maya laughed, twirled between them, looking like a promise personified. Bo lifted her. "Look what we've started." She rested her head on his shoulder. "Our family, our future." Annetta smiled, brushing a stray curl from Maya's face. "Together." Bo pressed a hand to his chest. "Together," he repeated. And in that clearing under the oak, where sign and flowers met sky, they stood as three family forged by truth, justice regained, and love renewed. "Daddy, Mama," Maya acclaimed and rooted, ready for whatever grew next. Spring arrived as if on purpose, the first green shoots poking through mellow soil. The farmhouse yard transformed into a workshop of hope. Bo, Annetta, and Maya worked in unison like a well-rehearsed trio. Bo unloaded bags of compost from the truck, Annetta measured rows in the raised beds, and Maya carried seedlings with careful hands. Every day, the three of them set to work together. Corn, beans, tomatoes, and squash, the staples of southern tables, found new purpose here. The farm team grew as well. Neighbors volunteered to help plant, water, and tend. It became a communal rhythm: dig, plant, cover, and chat between weeds. The simple work offered bonds and conversation, healing old distances with every seed buried. One afternoon, Bo and Annetta stood in a clearing, surveying rows of tender green. The soil smelled of rain and promise. In the distance, Maya knelt by the strawberry patch, murmuring names of each plant as though greeting old friends. Bo swallowed the lump in his throat. "I never pictured this." Annetta smiled and laid a hand on his arm. "I did. I could see it, before it was given back." He turned to look at the farmhouse. Its porch still sagged slightly, but the paint had been refreshed. Window boxes bloomed with lavender and marigolds. Laughter floated from within as Maya taught neighbors to string beans. "Everything's alive," he whispered. "So are we," she replied. The afternoon light drifted through the oak's branches. A group had gathered for the first garden meeting under its shade. Pastor Graham led, holding a notebook. "Neighbors," he began, "we're here to discuss next steps canning days, youth garden classes, and a fall harvest festival." Hands raised in nods and murmurs of excitement followed. One neighbor asked about beehives. Another suggested a food distribution program for families in need. Bo watched Annetta listening, surprised by how engaged she was. No trace of fatigue, just fierce, quiet determination. After the meeting ended, a woman named Joyce approached Annetta. She was older, quiet, with kind eyes. "When you knocked on doors for records, I grudgingly helped." She paused. "And yesterday, it was me fighting for squash seeds. My father worked that ground. I'm sorry it took so long." Annetta reached for her hand. "Thank you." They hugged, a gesture of shared regret and renewal. That evening, Bo sat on the porch swing again, this time with a homemade lemonade in hand. Annetta joined him with a sewing basket, mending Maya's overalls. The breeze smelled of earth and pollen, so different from the smoky threats of winter. Maya tucked in late after bedtime chores. She peeked in through the master bedroom window, placed her rabbit beside them, then slipped away. Bo closed his eyes and rested his head against Annetta's shoulder. "We did good," he said. "We did," she agreed. The next morning, they woke to distant buzzing. Bo stepped outside. The beekeeper, a neighbor who volunteered to bring 2 hives, was setting up. Annetta and Maya joined him. Maya gasped when bees began to circle her gently. She stepped back, then leaned forward. A single bee landed on her hand. Maya looked at it in wonder. "Tiny miracle," she whispered. The beekeeper smiled. "They're part of the farm now." That afternoon, Maya led a small class of local children around the strawberry row. "You dig gently," she instructed. "We don't hurt the roots." Bo watched her with pride. Annetta joined them, handing out berry baskets. Laughter darted through the rows. That night, around a table lit with lanterns, the farmhouse family and community volunteers celebrated their first planting season together. They shared a simple meal: fresh tomato salad, corn on the cob, and biscuits. They sang hymns and farmhouse songs, voices soft but warm. Maya climbed onto Bo's lap. "Daddy, we planted so much." He kissed her curls. "And most of it will feed us." She grinned. "I like planting." Annetta lifted her glass of sweet tea. "To planting." They clinked glasses together. Bo looked out at the rows that stretched into the dusk, the lantern light shimmering among leaves. He thought of the journey they'd lived: auction blocks, courtrooms, threats, and realized all that pain had been worth the promise now in every sprout and blossom before them. In the hush of night, with cicadas humming a lullaby, Bo whispered, "Our roots run deep." Annetta tucked herself closer. "Deeper than they know." And beneath that oak, surrounded by community and green life, they knew this planting season was not just about crops. It was about growing something everlasting: justice, family, and a legacy for every generation to inherit. Early morning mist curled over the fields like a soft blanket. Bo stepped onto the porch with a cup of hot coffee, warmed by the steam rising in the cool air. Annetta joined him with a quilt draped gently over her shoulders. Beneath their feet, the wooden boards were worn but sturdy, life well lived. Maya's laughter drifted from the yard. She was teaching neighborhood children to press flower petals into bookmark templates, pink petals and pressed daisies drying in the sun. Later today, she'd host a small ceremony under the oak to dedicate the seedbed they'd planted together. They sat quietly for a moment, listening to birdsong and distant tractor hum. Bo took Annetta's hand, tracing lines of ruled time. "We made it," he said softly. Annetta smiled, eyes bright in morning light. "We did more than make it. We rebuilt it." Bo nodded. "Our farm has a story now, shared roots, new harvests, hope sworn into the soil." She leaned closer. "And we have each other." Inside, the farmhouse came to life. Kitchen doors opened, breakfast sizzling, footsteps tapping wood floors. Maya appeared in the doorway, beaming. "Good morning, Daddy, Mama." Bo placed a loving hand on her shoulder. "Want to say the pledge before the ceremony?" Maya's eyes hardened, determined and kind. "Yes, our pledge is to this place, to this family, and to justice." They laughed together, the three of them, as they stepped off the porch and into the yard. Under the oak tree, a clearing was prepared. Chairs gathered in a loose semicircle. A small table held mason jars filled with soil from the fields. A hand-painted sign read, "Our promise, roots of respect." Neighbors and friends arrived. Bo greeted them, nodding with quiet pride. Annetta carried Maya's hand to the front. Pastor Graham stepped forward to begin the gathering. He spoke of community, healing, and what it meant to reclaim what was stolen. Each guest was invited to speak a few words and place a spoonful of soil into the jar, a ritual of shared responsibility. When it was their turn, Annetta knelt next to Maya. She guided her hand to the jar, Maya's small fingers trembling slightly. "For our future," Annetta whispered. Maya placed soil into the jar and shrugged off anxiety with a bright smile. Bo leaned forward, spoon in hand. He pressed the soil gently, adding his own words, "For never forgetting, and for always moving forward." The crowd sighed softly. One by one, everyone added soil until the jar overflowed rich, diverse earth from many farms and yards, symbolizing collective investment in their legacy. Pastor Graham concluded with a prayer of gratitude. The ceremony ended with quiet applause, and then a chorus of laughter as people hugged, mingled, and admired the jar of community earth. As midday neared, tables were set for a final meal together. Bo served trays of fresh garden harvest tomato and cucumber salad, strawberry shortcake, green bean bundles wrapped in bacon. The aromas mingled with laughter and conversation. Maya sat at the head of the table, announcing each course with playful authority. Bo caught Annetta's eye and raised his glass. "To family found, formed, and forever." She clinked hers. "To justice served and love returned." Maya hopped onto her seat. "To pumpkins next year." They toasted again, smiles circling the table, faces aglow with warmth and camaraderie. Later, Bo and Annetta wandered through the rows they had planted. Sunset draped a delicate glow over the farm. They stopped by the strawberry patch where Maya had taught children and knelt together. Bo gently brushed back a leaf from a ripe berry. "We built this," he said in awe. She rested her hand on his. "And tomorrow, we'll build more." He kissed her hand. Together, always. They walked back toward the farmhouse, footsteps soft on tilled soil. Maya ran ahead with her rabbit, calling, "Daddy, Mama, come see the fireflies." They found her in the wildflower patch at dusk, fireflies waking like living lanterns around her. Bo scooped her into his arms. Annetta beside them, enveloped in warm light and gentle magic. The three of them sat on the porch steps, watching the lights flicker among the blossoms. Maya pressed her rabbit to her cheek. Bo pulled his family close. He thought of the auction block, the threats, the court hearings, and everything that brought them here. The land was theirs. Their voices were heard. Their wounds were healed. And as the fireflies gathered, glowing in the hush of night, the farmhouse glowed too, full of peace and promise. Bo realized that justice wasn't loud or violent. It was a quiet truth, held gently in steady hands and open hearts. He closed his eyes and whispered, "We're home." Annetta leaned her head on his shoulder. Maya pressed her small hand into his. The fireflies blinked on, the night wrapped around them. And for once, Bo Maddox knew there would be no turning back. This was the lasting story of belonging, redemption, and love rooted deep in Southern earth.